Kicked out at 17 for being pregnant. 20 years later, my parents are trying to take my son. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of my father's study like bullets, but nothing could drown out my mother's voice. "You're a disgrace," Victoria Ashford said, her perfectly manicured hand gripping her wine glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. "An absolute disgrace to this family." I stood there in my Greenwood prep uniform, my hands trembling against my still flat stomach. I was 17, terrified, and I had just told my parents the secret that had been eating me alive for 6 weeks. "Mom, please," I began, but my father cut me off. "Don't." Richard Ashford didn't even look up from his mahogany desk, already pulling documents from a drawer. His salt and pepper hair was perfectly styled, his custom suit immaculate. He looked like what he was, one of the most powerful attorneys in the state, a man who could destroy lives with a phone call. "Don't say another word, Olivia. You've said enough." My mother circled me like a predator, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Even in crisis, she was stunning, the kind of beauty that came from expensive procedures and designer everything. Her honey-colored eyes, the same I'd inherited, were cold despite their warmth and shade. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she hissed. "Your father is about to announce his candidacy for state senator. I sit on the boards of 3 hospitals and 2 museums. Our name means something in this city. And you..." She gestured at me with disgust. "You throw it all away for what? Some boy? His name is Marcus, and he..." "I don't care if his name is the Prince of England," my father interrupted, finally meeting my eyes with that sharp, intimidating stare that had broken countless opponents in court. The disappointment there hurt worse than any insult. "You made your choice. Now you'll live with the consequences. But not under this roof." The words hit like a punch. "What?" My mother drained her wine and set the glass down with a sharp clink. "You heard your father. We won't let you destroy everything we've built. The Ashford name has stood for excellence in this city for generations. We will not let a teenage mistake tarnish that." "I'm your daughter," I cried, voice cracking. "This is your grandchild." "No," my father said, rising to his full height, his tone cold and final. "You stopped being an Ashford the moment you made this foolish choice. As for that," he couldn't even say the word baby, "it has nothing to do with us." He opened the safe behind a painting, pulling out a stack of papers and an envelope. "These are emancipation papers, already filed. Effective immediately. You are no longer our responsibility. There's $5,000 in that envelope. You have 10 minutes to pack a bag and leave." "Daddy, please!" The word slipped out before I could stop it. He checked his Rolex. 9 minutes, 40 seconds. I turned to my mother, hoping for mercy, but she was already refilling her glass, her reflection in the window emotionless. "Mom, don't make this harder than it has to be, Olivia," she said flatly. "You made an adult choice. Now face adult consequences." I stumbled out of the study, tears blurring my vision, and ran upstairs to my room, the same room I'd had since I was born, with its 4-poster bed and shelves lined with debate trophies and academic awards. My hands shook as I stuffed clothes into my backpack. On my nightstand was a photo from last summer, me, my parents, and my brother Christopher at his Harvard graduation. We looked perfect. It was all a lie. Footsteps in the hall. Christopher stood in the doorway, 23, the golden child. Harvard Law, working for Dad, engaged to a senator's daughter. "Chris, please talk to them." "I can't live," he said softly. "You know how they are. Image is everything." "I'm family." "Not anymore." He glanced down the hall. "Go, they mean it." Then he walked away. My own brother walked away. I grabbed my bag, my phone, and the envelope my father had left on my desk. I took one last look at the room that had been my whole life, then stepped out. The rain was worse now. I stood on the marble steps of the 12,000-square-foot Ashford mansion and listened as the door closed behind me. The click of the lock echoed through me. That sound would haunt me for years. I started walking. No destination, just away. The rain soaked through my uniform in seconds. I was 17, pregnant, alone, with $5,000 and nowhere to go. My phone buzzed. Messages from friends who already knew. My parents worked fast. Then the screen went black. They'd cut off my service. I walked for hours, through neighborhoods that went from mansions to apartments to something darker. My feet bled in shoes never meant for this. I kept walking because stopping meant facing what I'd lost. Near midnight, I found myself somewhere unfamiliar. The streets were empty, the lights dim. I was freezing, drenched, and shaking when I saw a glow. A small cafe, its neon sign flickering. Rosie's. Inside, an older woman was wiping tables. I pushed the door open, a bell chiming softly. She looked up, silver-streaked hair, warm brown eyes, an apron worn with time. "Oh, honey," she said, taking in my soaked uniform and tear-streaked face. "Come here, right now." I took 3 steps and collapsed. I woke above the cafe smelling of coffee and cinnamon, and for a heartbeat believed it had been a dream, that I would open my eyes in my 4-poster bed and hear my mother call. But the scratchy blanket, the cracked plaster overhead, and the aching chill in my bones pulled me back to reality. Rosie, the woman from the cafe, sat on a chair by the narrow bed with a steaming mug and a look that was part concern, part calculation. "Easy now," she said. "You were out for hours. I got you into dry clothes." I was in an oversized sweater and sweatpants that weren't mine. My Greenwood prep uniform hung on a hook, still dripping into a bucket. I told her, in fits and starts, that I had nowhere to go. The words made the humiliation and fear real, and the tears came hot and relentless. Rosie didn't offer hollow comfort. She sat on the bed, pulled me close, and held me like someone who had learned how not to let other people fall through the cracks. When I studied, she handed me a mug of real hot chocolate and started asking quiet, practical questions. How old I was, how far along, the father's name. I told her about Marcus, about being 17, about my parents' study and the envelope and the emancipation papers and Christopher walking away. As I spoke, her face changed from pity to something harder. "The Ashfords," she said at last. "Richard Ashford defended the developer who bulldozed my neighborhood 23 years ago. I know his name." The story that spilled out of her then wasn't small. A demolition, lives erased, a daughter lost, Rosie's daughter. Working late in a building they claimed was empty. A developer who paid fines and walked. A powerful attorney who found loopholes, discredited witnesses, and made the case disappear. I had no idea. She produced a folder, clippings, legal papers, photographs, evidence she'd collected in fits and starts for decades. She said bluntly that she had been only a cafe owner with no reach, no influence, and that for years she had waited. Then she looked at me with a clarity that felt like an offer and a weapon. "You're not your parents," she said. "You're a girl who needs help. I can help you with the baby, with school, with getting your life started. In return, I want something. Trust, patience, and when the time is right, cooperation. Your child is Ashford by blood. That blood matters to people like your parents. If that child becomes someone they can't ignore, someone exceptional, then the balance can shift." It sounded like vengeance. She corrected me. Justice. She explained the long game. We raise the child safe and strong, give them opportunities, let them become remarkable in a way that will pierce the Ashford armor. She wanted copies of every document that proved they'd legally cut me off, every signature that erased me, paper trails that could be a lever when the time came. Rosie offered me a choice. Take what money she could spare and leave in the morning, or stay and join a plan that might take years. I sat with the folder, one hand on my flat stomach, thinking of my mother's cold honey eyes, my father's dismissive stare, and Christopher's back as he walked away. Most of all, I thought of the small life inside me that my parents had rejected before it began. If I was going to survive, maybe survival wasn't enough. I might need a purpose. By dawn, I had read the papers until their edges blurred and made a decision. When Rosie brought breakfast, real eggs, toast, orange juice, I looked up with a steady, new determination. "I'll stay," I said. "Tell me everything. Every detail about your daughter. Every connection my father has. I want copies of the emancipation papers and every signature." Rosie smiled in a way that was almost hopeful. "Then we'd better get started," she said. "We've got a long game ahead." She raised her coffee. I lifted my orange juice. "To the long game," we said and clinked. Neither of us understood then how perfectly the plan might work, nor how one day that child could become the hinge on which my parents' fate turned. But in that cramped room above a cafe, two broken women made a pact, patient, dangerous, and driven by a cold, careful idea of justice. The first 3 months were the hardest. Rosie used the emancipation papers my father had filed to enroll me in an online high school. "He made you legally independent," she told me, tapping the documents as if they were a weapon and a key at once. Every paper, every signature, every form went into a fireproof box she kept under a loose floorboard. "Evidence," she said simply. I worked the cafe's early shift, 4 a.m. to noon, then studied until dinner while my body changed and the polo of my old uniform strained across my rising belly. Regulars were kinder than my family. Mrs. Chen began dropping off prenatal vitamins with a gruff, "My daughter's a pharmacist. She says you need these." And I cried in the bathroom because strangers showed me more compassion than the people who were supposed to love me. At night, Rosie taught me what she knew about my father: cases, boxes of court records, clippings, witness statements buried or discredited, photographs of her daughter Maria smiling from scattered frames. Rosie told the story. 23 years ago, a developer bulldozed her neighborhood. Her daughter was in a building fixing a heater. They labeled her a trespasser. Richard Ashford engineered the defense and the charges evaporated. I had never known. She slid a folder across to me, evidence she collected in fits and starts, and with a gaze that mixed sadness and strategy, she made an offer. Stay with her. Let her help me and the baby, and in return I would trust her and play the long game. She believed our child, an Ashford by blood, could become leverage if we raised him to be someone the family could not ignore. It felt like revenge, she corrected me. Justice. The next day, she took me to a small lawyer in Koreatown, David Park, who read the emancipation papers and shook his head. "It's airtight," he said. "They legally severed parental responsibility. That means whatever you build now is yours. If they try to claim grandparent rights later, these documents prove they relinquished them." He refused payment. His own family had lost their home to my father's clients. He became a lawyer because of that courtroom. I cried again, always crying those months. Once I doubled over in the cafe bathroom with a sharp pain. Rosie was terrified but calm and drove me to the ER. Dr. Sarah Mendoza, a resident with tired eyes and an honest voice, ordered an ultrasound. For the first time, I saw him on a grainy screen, a flickering heartbeat, a small, stubborn life. "He's fine," she said. "You need rest, food, support." She put me on a reduced payment program and offered bi-weekly checkups free. She'd been a medical student who chose her baby over school once and now helped other women when she could. I went home clutching that picture like a promise. Elias was born on a freezing February morning after 16 hours of labor with Rosie and Mrs. Chen at my sides, and Dr. Mendoza delivering him personally even off duty. He was 7 pounds 6 ounces, dark hair, honey eyes that seemed to look right through me. I named him Elias, God is my salvation, because he felt like salvation. As I learned to nurse and survive on stolen sleep, Rosie revealed the plan in more detail. Stacked records of questionable deals, missing evidence, paid witnesses, bribes, 23 years of shadows. "We can't simply expose him," she said as Elias slept in a bassinet between us. "Men like him have resources to bury things. We need leverage, something they crave enough to reveal themselves trying to claim it." I understood then the scheme. Raise Elias to be exceptional, brilliant, publicly beloved, impossible to ignore. So when the Ashfords inevitably tried to claim him, their legal and moral contradictions would be on display. The emancipation papers that had been meant to discard me instead became a paper trail, proving the family had chosen reputation over daughter and grandchild. Rosie had saved a little over the years. We funneled every spare dollar toward Elias's future, better schools, tutors, programs, because the plan required true merit, not manufactured fame. "What if he doesn't want to be a doctor?" I asked once. "Then he becomes whatever he loves," Rosie said. "We give him opportunities, not scripts. The plan only works if he is genuinely extraordinary." Nights were long and small: diapers, lessons, legal research, volunteer projects, scholarships, small victories stitched together. I learned to document everything. receipts, emails, witness names, any paper the Ashfords' lawyers might later try to scrub. I learned patience, Rosie called it the long game, and how to transform rage into steady work. There were days I doubted it. There were nights I whispered apologies to Elias for the world he'd been born into. But I also watched him learn, watched kindness multiply around us. Dr. Mendoza becoming a friend and medical guardian, Mrs. Chen baking for us, David checking in with legal advice, and realized the world contained people who repaired rather than destroy. We built from nothing, a small home above a cafe, a cache of evidence, a child who grew loved and curious. Years would pass, 18, maybe 20, before any reckoning, and justice would require endurance. But every tutor, every scholarship application, every documented slight against us was a stitch in something larger. They had thrown us away. We were building a life so luminous it could not be ignored. When they returned, eventually hungry for the grandson, they'd abandoned the paperwork they'd de-authored, and the memories we as a D kept would tell a different story. One of betrayal and cold convenience on their part, and of love labor and meticulous patience on ours. Justice, Rosie would say, isn't always swift, but sometimes with time and care, it becomes absolute. Elias was different from the start. Every mother believes her child is special, but with him, it was undeniable. At 18 months, he was speaking in full sentences. At 3, he was reading chapter books. By 5, he was asking questions that made adults stop and think. Questions about how the heart pumped blood, why some people got sick while others didn't, what happened inside the body when it healed. "Mom?" he asked one morning at breakfast, his honey-colored eyes serious as he studied a book about anatomy. "Why do some kids not have enough food? Mrs. Chen says some kids at her grandson's school are hungry." I looked at Rosie, flipping pancakes at the stove. She nodded gently. "Because sometimes the world isn't fair," I said. "Some people have a lot, and some people have very little." Elias frowned. "That's wrong. When I grow up, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to help people." Rosie placed a plate in front of him. "That's a big goal, little man." "Mom says big goals are worth having," he replied with absolute conviction. "Right, Mom?" "Right," I whispered, my throat tight. I'd finished my online high school diploma when Elias was 6 months old. Rosie insisted I go to community college. "You need a degree, too. Part of credibility," she'd said. So I studied nursing at night, worked at the cafe by day, and raised my son in between. It took 6 years to earn my associates, then my bachelor's, then my RN license. The first time I put on scrubs for County General, Rosie took a photo. Elias, 8 years old, stood beside me, beaming with pride. "My mom's a nurse," he told everyone. "She helps people who are sick." He was in 3rd grade but reading at a 10th grade level. His teacher, Mr. Rodriguez, called me in for a meeting. I braced for trouble, but he smiled warmly. "Ms. Ashford," he said, "Elias is exceptional. I've never seen a student like him. Intelligent, curious, emotionally aware. He needs more challenge." I immediately said I couldn't afford private school. "Not private," he assured me, handing over a folder. "Lincoln Science Academy, full scholarship for gifted students. It's perfect for him." That night, I filled out the application while Elias slept. For family, I wrote the truth. Single mother, no father, no grandparents. The absence of names stung, but it was our protection. Elias got in. At 9, he was studying high school biology. At 11, he attended university lectures on weekends. At 13, he told me he wanted to be a cardiac surgeon. "Not just any doctor," he said, eyes glowing. "The heart's the most important organ. If I can fix hearts, I can save the most lives." Rosie met my gaze over the dinner table. We hadn't guided him toward this. It was his dream. "Then that's what you'll be," I told him. What it took was everything. Elias studied with relentless focus. While other teens went to parties, he stayed late in the lab. While they posted online, he volunteered at the hospital, shadowing doctors. "Don't you want to hang out with friends?" I asked once. "I have friends, Mom. But I also have goals," he said. "Every hour I study now is a life I might save later." David Park helped us navigate financial aid. Dr. Mendoza wrote recommendation letters. Mrs. Chen held a fundraiser at the cafe. The community, Our rebuilt family rallied around him. At 16, Elias was accepted to Stanford on a full scholarship. When the letter came, Rosie and I cried. "He did it," she whispered. "We all did," I said. That summer, walking in the park, Elias asked, "What about my grandparents? Don't I have any?" I'd prepared for years. "You did," I said. "But they chose not to be part of your life. They cared more about reputation than family." He hugged me. "Their loss. I'd rather have you and Rosie." But that night, I heard him crying. Rosie found me staring at the fireproof box that held everything, every signature, every piece of evidence. "Second thoughts?" she asked. "No," I said firmly. "He deserves to know. And someday they deserve consequences." Rosie, silver-haired and 78 now, nodded. "He just needs to be undeniable first." Elias graduated Stanford in 3 years. Top of his class, perfect MCAT scores. Every med school wanted him. He chose Johns Hopkins, the best for cardiac surgery. "Mom," he said from Baltimore, excitement trembling in his voice, "Dr. Wallace says I could be the youngest board-certified cardiac surgeon in the state by 27. I smiled, tears burning. "I'm so proud of you, baby." Because he didn't know about the plan. He didn't know about the decades of preparation, the evidence, the waiting, the trap. He just knew love, faith, and support. He was extraordinary by choice, not manipulation. And that made it perfect. My parents hadn't just rejected a pregnant teenager. They'd rejected a future surgeon who would save lives. A grandson who could have been their pride. Instead, he was mine. 2 years into his residency, Elias called. "Mom, they want to feature me in a documentary about young surgeons. There'll be a camera crew for a month." Rosie and I locked eyes. 20 years. We'd waited 20 years for this. "That's wonderful, honey," I said. "They want to interview you too," he added. "About raising me, is that okay?" I thought about Richard and Victoria Ashford, still powerful, still cold, and wondered if they watched documentaries, if they followed prodigies in medicine. They were about to. "Yes," I said. "That's absolutely okay." The documentary aired on a Tuesday night in March. Rising Stars, The New Generation of Medicine, a piece profiling 5 young doctors across the country, and Elias was the youngest and the one they lingered on longest. Rosie and I watched in the tiny apartment above the cafe, the same cramped room where I'd collapsed 2 decades earlier, holding hands like 2 conspirators as the footage rolled. Elias in scrubs calm and precise, explaining a complicated cardiac repair with the kind of measured humility that made strangers trust him instantly. "The heart is resilient," he told the interviewer, his voice steady, his hands moving in the clean, economical gestures he used in the OR. "But sometimes it needs help. My job is to repair what's broken so people can live full lives." Then they showed my interview, filmed at County General, a 45-year-old woman with tired lines around her eyes but a definite, unbowed expression. The narrator introduced me as Elias's mother, a single parent who juggled jobs and school to raise a son who learned the value of service and hard work. I said what I always said when asked how I'd done it, that I loved him, gave him opportunities, and trusted community over privilege. I let the camera catch the smallest, deliberate phrase we'd planted. "Hard work matters more than your last name," and felt a tiny, private thrill when Rosie squeezed my hand. The documentary ended with Elias operating, saving a 13-year-old girl with a congenital defect. The camera caught the moment he assured the parents their child would live and the way they sobbed into his shoulder. It was the kind of human footage that spreads. Articles followed, profiles calling him the young surgeon changing the field, think pieces about grit and opportunity, and his social media swelled with admirers. But none of that would have mattered if not for the next rupture. 3 months later, the event that would alter everything happened at a reception in the state capitol. Governor Martinez I.S. daughter collapsed in cardiac arrest at a dinner. Elias, off-duty and dining with colleagues, sprang into action. He performed CPR, stabilized her, and spent hours in emergency surgery until the crisis was over. The governor announced it at a live press conference the next day, standing with Elias at his side and calling the young doctor a miracle worker whose speed and skill had saved his daughter. Video of Elias in the ambulance and then in scrubs beside the governor went viral within hours. Newsrooms called, networks wanted interviews, and medical journals sent requests. Somewhere in their mansion in the city's exclusive enclave, Richard and Victoria Ashford watched as the grandson they'd repudiated became a national figure. I knew they were watching because Christopher called that night, my brother, the son who Dee never had to choose between family and reputation, and his voice trembled with a calculated mixture of surprise and opportunity. "Liv," he said. "Mom and Dad want to meet him. They saw the news. They want to make amends." I laughed then, not from humor, but from bile. "After 20 years?" I asked, listening to years of memory clatter into a single sentence. The study door closing, the emancipation papers, the rain closing over my shoes, Christopher's back as he walked away. "They chose their image over their daughter and grandson," I said. "If they want to meet him, they can go through proper channels. I won't stop them, but I won't help them." I hung up before he could wheedle. Rosie stood in the doorway, eyes alert. "It's starting," she said. "They'll come." 2 days later, a law firm I'd never heard of delivered an urgent letter to Johns Hopkins. Elias called immediately, confused and a little angry about strangers claiming kinship. I asked him to come home that weekend. There were things he needed to see. When he arrived, we sat at Rosie's small table and spread out every document we had. The emancipation papers, correspondence, the folders of evidence Rosie had compiled for 23 years about the demolition that had taken her neighborhood and her daughter witnesses, discredited by my father's legal maneuvering payments that traced like mud. Elias read in silence, his brilliant mind cataloging dates and names, the cruelty of choices that prioritized reputation over people. "You planned this?" he asked finally, incredulous. "Since before I was born?" "We prepared," I said slowly. "We gave you the space to become extraordinary on your own. No pressure, only opportunity. But yes, we anticipated that if you ever became visible enough, they would come crawling back." He stood and went to the window, looking out over the block where he'd taken first steps, where we'd fought and laughed and worked. When he turned back, his face had that familiar surgeon's resolve. "Tell me everything they did," he said, "and then tell me how we make them accountable." In that moment, the long arc we'd shaped, years of scrimping, of tutoring, of legal counsel, of building community support, felt crystalline. The plan had never been a petty trap. It was a careful inversion of the power they wielded. Make the son so necessary, so publicly revered, that any attempt to claim him would force a reckoning with the documents that proved they had abandoned us. The immediate future would be messy. Press inquiries, legal posturing, the clinical cruelty of public relations. But the whole thing had always depended on one simple truth. Elias C.'s life would be his own. And by shining a light on his goodness and competence, we would make visible the choices that had tried to erase us. He put his hand on my shoulder, steady as he had been in the operating room, and said quietly, "Let's show them what kind of people we are." The meeting was set for Tuesday at a high-end downtown restaurant, neutral territory. Richard and Victoria Ashford didn't do casual lunches. I wore a simple, elegant dress. Elias wore a tailored suit David Park insisted on. "You need to look like you belong," he said. Rosie stayed behind. Her words echoed. Every word they say can be used against them. Stay calm. We arrived on time. The maitre d' led us to a private room. 20 years had passed. Richard's hair was silver, sharp eyes calculating. Victoria's honey-colored eyes mirrored mine and Elias's, but remained cold. Christopher was there too, uncomfortable in his suit, early gray at the temples. "Olivia," my mother said, reaching out, then dropping her hand. "You look... well..." "I'm a nurse at County General," I said flatly. 60-hour weeks. Well is relative. My father glanced at Elias, pride or calculation flickering. "Dr. Ashford, I've seen your work. Remarkable." "It's my job," Elias said, squeezing my hand under the table. "Support. Solidarity." Richard began. "I suppose you're wondering why we asked to meet." "I know why," I interrupted. "My son became famous and suddenly you remember a daughter and grandson." Victoria flinched. "Olivia, that's not fair." "Fair?" I snapped. "You threw me out in a storm at 17, emancipated me, locked the door. 20 years later, you call this fair?" We made a mistake, Richard said. Campaign, reputation. Still thinking about the campaign, Elias said. That's why we're here. Great optics. Christopher shifted. They genuinely want to make amends. Elias leaned back. Where were you for my first birthday? First day of school, Stanford Hopkins? Silence. Exactly, he continued. I don't need grandparents. I had a mother who gave me everything, Rosie, more family than blood, and a community that supported us. I don't need your money or connections. But you have our name, Richard said. Biologically, Elias countered. Legally, morally, no claim. My mother is emancipated. You terminated parental rights. Victoria cracked. We just want to know our grandson. When he was a baby, he wasn't worth your time. Now he's a celebrated surgeon, he is. My mother pleaded. We're trying to make it right. How? I leaned forward. 20 years of abandonment. Do you know how many times he cried asking why he wasn't enough? Elias's precision cut through the emotion. You're running for Senate, grandfather. Having a grandson who rose from poverty to celebrated surgeon would be a powerful narrative. Maybe I could speak at your announcement. Richard's eyes lit up. That would be incredible. Under conditions, Elias said. Name them, Victoria pressed. First, publicly acknowledge what you did, throwing out your pregnant daughter, cutting off contact. The truth. Silence. Second, establish the Olivia Ashford Foundation for Single Mothers, fully funded, scholarships, housing, medical care. Richard tensed. Third, donate $10 million to rebuild the community you destroyed 23 years ago. Rosie oversees every dollar. Richard paled. How do you know? I know everything. Buried evidence, paid witnesses, families destroyed, your millions. Documentation. Victoria understood. This was a setup. You knew we'd come. We knew eventually, I said. We waited 20 years to make you care. We knew you'd try to use him. You have a choice, Elias said. Accept, admit, fund the foundation, rebuild the community. I'll be your grandson publicly. Heartwarming family story, refuse, and we go public with everything. You can't be serious, Richard said, blackmailing us. No, Rosie said from the doorway. A chance at redemption, more than you offered Olivia. David Park stepped forward. I'm their attorney. Preliminary lawsuits are ready. Civil suits, ethics complaints, a dossier for the media. We don't want to destroy you, I said. We want justice. Use your power for good. Acknowledge what you did. 72 hours, Elias concluded. Accept, work together. Refuse, go public. Your choice. The first 24 hours were silent. No calls, no emails, nothing. I worked my shifts at County General, my mind elsewhere. Elias flew back to Baltimore but kept his phone close. Rosie maintained her routine at the cafe, tension in her shoulders. They're consulting their lawyers, David said on a call, trying to find a way out. There isn't one. On the second day, Christopher showed up at the cafe, 6 a.m. I saw him through the window, looking lost. I almost didn't unlock the door, but I did. Liv, he said. Up close, he looked exhausted. I need to talk to you, not as their messenger, as your brother. I haven't had a brother in 20 years, I said, pouring him coffee anyway. I failed you, he admitted. I was 23, terrified, and I chose wrong. I've regretted it every day. Regret doesn't raise a child, Chris. It doesn't pay for food or medicine. He swallowed hard. They're going to refuse your terms. Dad's pride won't let him admit fault. Mom knows they should accept, but Dad's adamant. I felt vindication and dread. Then they'll face consequences. Liv, please. If you go public, it won't just destroy Dad's campaign. It'll destroy Mom too. Marriage, reputation, everything. Everything they built was on the backs of people they destroyed, I said. Rosie's daughter, that neighborhood, me, Elias. He nodded. I wanted you to know before they answer, and I'm sorry for being a coward. Do you have kids? Twin girls, 8. Do you love them? More than anything. Then you understand why I can't back down. Everything I did for Elias. Christopher nodded. If they refuse, can I stay out of the blast radius? I'll testify if needed. You'd testify against them? If someone treated my daughters that way, I'd want accountability. Let me be that someone now. My phone rang. Father's lawyer. Mr. and Mrs. Ashford have reached a decision. I put it on speaker. They'll establish a foundation with $5 million, donate $2 million to the neighborhood, but cannot admit details publicly. They offer a general statement. Benefits without accountability, I said. Rejected. 24 hours left. Full terms or exposure. That night, Elias arrived. We sat in Rosie's apartment with David and boxes of evidence. They'll refuse, I told him. Good, he said. Then we do this right. Full press conference. Rosie pulled out a final folder. Bank records, photos, recordings proving Richard Ashford profited from the demolition, not just defended it. He profited from destroying homes from my daughter's death, Rosie said. David's eyes widened. Fraud, conflict of interest, criminal conspiracy. Why now? Earlier, he could have buried it. Now, no way. The final deadline was Thursday noon. We gathered at David's office. At 11:45 a.m., my father called. Olivia, what you're asking, the public admission, it would end everything. And you're willing? You're not my family. You made that clear 20 years ago. Family doesn't abandon children for reputation. I was wrong. I offered millions. What more do you want? The truth. Public. Complete. No spin. You threw out your pregnant daughter, rejected your grandson, profited from destroying a community. Own it. Silence. I can't. Then we're done. Wait, my mother said. Think of Christopher's daughters. I heard Christopher intervene. Mom, Dad, this is on you, not Liv. You gave her 10 minutes to pack, threw her into the street. She was pregnant and terrified. Christopher, Victoria gasped. I watched Olivia build a life, raise an extraordinary son. Now you want to claim him for a campaign? That's exploitation. I won't be part of it. Silence. You have 2 hours, I said. Full acceptance or press conference. No extensions. At 1:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the deadline, an email arrived from Richard Ashford. We accept all terms. Full public statement. $10 million for the foundation. $10 million for community rebuilding. Rosie oversees everything. We resign from positions. We'll cooperate fully with investigations. We ask only the chance to know our grandson, if he's willing. You were right, Olivia. I'm sorry for everything. I read it thrice. Elias looked over my shoulder, Rosie beside him. Is it enough? He asked quietly. It's a start, I said. The press conference was held 5 days later in the Meridian Hotel ballroom, the same place my parents had hosted fundraisers and built their empire. Now it would witness their reckoning. Media filled every seat. National outlets, local news, legal commentators. Word had spread that Senator hopeful Richard Ashford would appear with his previously unknown daughter and famous grandson. I stood backstage with Elias, both in simple professional attire. Rosie sat in the front row, David beside her. Christopher was there too, with his wife Elena and their twin daughters, my nieces Sophia and Isabella, 8. You ready for this? Elias asked. 20 years ready, I said. My father walked out first, my mother beside him, diminished somehow. Victoria's honey-colored eyes were red from crying. Richard's dark eyes held genuine remorse. Thank you all for coming, he began. I am here as a father who failed his daughter and a grandfather who missed 20 years of his grandson's life. He paused. 20 years ago, my daughter Olivia was 17 and pregnant. We were concerned about appearances, my career, our reputation. We gave her 10 minutes to pack and leave. I filed emancipation papers. We locked the door behind her and never looked back. Whispers and flashes filled the room. She was 17. It was raining. She had nowhere to go. We chose our image over our child, he said, voice cracking. Victoria stepped forward, tears streaming. I was her mother. I should have protected her. I turned my back. I cared more about appearances than my daughter's well-being. Richard continued. The baby Olivia carried is now Dr. Elias Ashford, one of the youngest and most accomplished cardiac surgeons in the nation. He saved Governor Martinez's daughter. My grandson, a grandson I rejected before birth, who became extraordinary despite us. He looked into the cameras. Olivia raised him alone. She worked multiple jobs while earning her nursing degree. She gave him every opportunity despite having nothing. She did it without our help. She is a better parent than I ever was. My mother inhaled shakily. We're here because our daughter and grandson gave us a choice. Face the truth publicly or have it exposed. We chose the truth. Richard pulled out papers. I'm announcing the Olivia Ashford Foundation for Single Mothers, with initial funding of $10 million. It will provide housing, education, medical care, and child care for single parents. Everything Olivia needed and didn't have. Victoria added, we're donating $10 million to rebuild Riverside, destroyed 23 years ago. A demolition I defended and profited from as a silent investor. Families lost homes. People died. I helped make it happen while collecting fees and returns. Reporters shouted questions. Richard raised his hand. There's more. I withdraw from the senatorial race immediately. I resign from Ashford & Associates. Will cooperate fully with investigations into Riverside and other unethical cases. Victoria steps down from all boards. We ask only to know our grandson, not for publicity, just as family. Elias took my hand and we walked out. Cameras went crazy. People noticed the resemblance. My honey-colored eyes, Elias's features echoing my father's jaw. Mom, Elias said into the microphone, built a life from nothing. She never gave up. She taught me circumstances don't define you. Choices do. Every day. He gestured to Rosie. Rosie took us in when we had nowhere else. A community with almost nothing gave us everything. I spoke next. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because truth matters. Accountability matters. My parents hurt me, my son, countless others. Today, they acknowledge that and make amends. I looked at my parents, seeing them clearly, not as powerful figures, but as flawed people facing consequences. The foundation will help parents like I was, scared, alone. Rebuilding Riverside honors Maria Martinez and the families destroyed. It can't undo the past, but it changes the future. I paused. As for my relationship with my parents, trust isn't rebuilt overnight, but I'm willing to see if redemption is possible. The Q&A was brutal. Richard answered honestly about emancipation papers, the demolition case, paid witnesses, conflicts of interest. For the first time, he told the unvarnished truth. Afterwards, in a private room, Christopher introduced his daughters. This is your Aunt Olivia and cousin Elias. Sophia said softly, Mom said you were lost, but now you're found. I knelt. I was lost, but people helped me find my way. And now I'm here. Isabella hugged me. Sophia joined. I cried, for the first time in 20 years, not from pain, but from hope mixed with grief. My mother watched, hand over mouth. My father turned away. Christopher mouthed, "Thank you." Elias crouched beside us. "Hi, I'm Elias. I'm a doctor, but I'm also good at video games." The girls giggled. That night, after everyone left, I sat with Rosie in her apartment above the cafe. "We did it," I said quietly. "You did it," Rosie corrected. "You survived. You raised an incredible son. You held your parents accountable. Your daughter would be proud," Rosie finished. "Maria believed in justice and second chances. Your parents accepting responsibility honors her memory." I looked around the apartment. What happens now? Rosie smiled. Now you live, Olivia. Not reacting, but celebrating what you built. You have a brilliant son, a career helping people, a family trying, and a future yours to write. She was right. The plan worked, consequences were faced, foundations will help others. Now it was time to live beyond the past. I was 45, my son a renowned surgeon, my parents attempting redemption, my brother had stood up, and I had my whole life ahead. "To new chapters," I said, raising a cup of Rosie's hot chocolate. To new chapters, Rosie agreed, and to the beautiful, messy, complicated business of forgiveness. 6 months after the press conference, the world felt different. The Olivia Ashford Foundation opened in a renovated building downtown. I took leave from County General to help launch it, though I still worked weekends. Nursing was part of me. Our first client, Maya, 19, pregnant and kicked out, reminded me of myself at 17. The same fear, the same desperate hope. "You're safe here," I told her, and meant it. "We'll help you finish school, find housing, prenatal care. You and your baby will be okay." She cried. I held her and realized that helping people like her was the purpose of all those years of pain. Not revenge. Purpose. The Riverside community rebuild progressed faster than expected. Rosie oversaw every detail like a general. The new community center, nearly complete, had a clinic, childcare, and educational programs, named the Maria Martinez Community Center. At the dedication, Rosie and my father cut the ribbon together. Surreal to see them, she whose daughter he helped bury, and he the man who caused it, working to create something good. "We're not friends," Rosie told him bluntly afterward. "But you're trying. That counts." Richard nodded. "I don't deserve your grace, but I'm grateful." My relationship with my parents remained complicated. Monthly dinners, first in public, later private. My mother overcompensated with gifts and apologies. My father was reserved, but the weight of guilt was visible. "I don't know how to be your father anymore," he admitted one night. "Maybe we can discover what we can be now," I said. Not parent and child, but two adults trying to understand each other. Christopher surprised me. He left the family firm, started a pro bono practice defending families against evictions and predatory landlords. Elena, his wife, said he hadn't been the same since finally standing up to our parents. His daughters, my nieces, embraced me without hesitation, asking about Elias and including me in school events. Elias came home once a month. He launched free cardiac screenings in underserved communities. "Every person I help," he said, "reminds me how you and Rosie helped us. I'm paying it forward." He agreed to see my parents occasionally, but kept them at a distance. "Biologically, my grandparents," he said. "But Rosie is my grandmother in every meaningful way." Everything felt like a new normal, until the call from the hospital. "Ms. Ashford, your mother, Victoria Ashford, had a heart attack. She's serious and asking for you." I froze, memories flooding back. I called Elias. "Mom's in the hospital, heart attack. I'll catch the next flight," he said. But I went alone. In the cardiac wing, my father waited, looking older than ever. "Olivia, thank God. I didn't know if you'd come." "How is she?" "Tests now. It was serious. If I hadn't called 911... Christopher arrived, breathless. We waited in silence until Dr. Mendoza, now head of cardiology, came out. "She's stable, in cardiac ICU, significant infarction, possibly bypass surgery. She'll survive." I asked if I could see her. "Immediate family?" "I'm her daughter." "Then yes. But prepare. She's weak, scared." Victoria, never weak in my memory, lay fragile, tubes and wires everywhere. "Olivia," she whispered. "You came." "Of course." I sat by her bed. I thought, after everything, "You might not." "Because I'm not you," I said. "I don't abandon the weakest, even when abandoned myself." She sobbed, deep, wrenching, alarm sounding. "I failed you." "I know." I squeezed her hand. "Forgiveness isn't forgetting. What happened shaped me, made me stronger, a better mother. Your worst moment helped build my best ones." "How are you so strong?" she asked. "Because I had to be. Elias needed me." Rosie showed us the way. "And maybe, before you became the woman who threw me out, you taught me resilience. Ashford women don't quit." "I said that at your first debate," she whispered. "You were 12. "I remembered," I said. "During the hardest times of nursing school, when Elias was sick, I didn't quit." She gripped my hand. "You're more Ashford than any of us. The best the name should be." Elias arrived 3 hours later, still in flight clothes, medical bag in hand. He reviewed her charts with Dr. Mendoza. Significant blockage, he said. Needs triple bypass. Dr. Chen is excellent. Or, Mendoza said, Dr. Ashford can operate himself. He's qualified. The best young cardiac surgeon I've seen in 30 years. Silence. Elias looked at me, then at his grandmother, then at my father, barely holding himself together. No, Elias said firmly. I can't operate on family. Protocol forbids it, and my judgment could be compromised. Dr. Chen is excellent. Grandmother, you'll be in the best hands. My father exhaled. Victoria nodded weakly. Elias continued, I'll scrub in to assist. I'll be there making sure everything goes perfectly. Despite everything, you're my grandmother. Saving lives is what I do. The surgery was scheduled for the next morning. That night, our fractured family gathered in the waiting room. Me, my father, Christopher, and his family, Rosie with food, David. Sophia and Isabella sat with Rosie as she told stories of the old neighborhood, Maria, the cafe. My father listened, truly hearing the cost of his actions. Maria wanted to be a pediatrician, Rosie said. She practiced taking my blood pressure, listened with a toy stethoscope. She believed every child deserved a doctor who cared, not just insurance or payment. Like Elias, Isabella said. He does free heart checks for kids. Exactly, Rosie agreed. Good people inspire good people. Ripples spread outward. My father approached Rosie hesitantly. Ms. Martinez, I'm sorry. For your daughter, for my actions, for your decades of struggle. Rosie studied him. I spent 23 years angry. When Olivia arrived pregnant and terrified, part of me wanted revenge. But I got a daughter when I'd lost mine. I saw a boy grow up. Even terrible actions can yield good if we choose it. She faced him. Your apology doesn't bring Maria back, but it means her life mattered. I accept your apology, not because you earned it, but because hate poisons the living. I choose love. His eyes filled with tears. Thank you. You're generous beyond what I deserve. Most people are, Rosie said. Goodness persists despite power and cruelty. That's why your daughter survived, why your grandson thrived. Not your name or money, but people choosing to do right. The surgery lasted 6 hours. Elias sent updates. Proceeding well, blockages worse but manageable. She's strong, holding steady. When Dr. Chen and Elias emerged, exhausted but smiling, we all stood. Successful, Dr. Chen said. Triple bypass, no complications. Recovery and lifestyle changes needed, but full recovery expected. My father fell to his knees, Christopher supporting him. I felt my own knees weaken. Despite everything, she was still my mother. Elias removed his surgical cap, tired but clear-eyed. She's okay. Diet, exercise, stress management. No more boards. She must live, not just exist. I'll make sure, my father said. They let me see her first. Victoria lay asleep, machines beeping steadily. I held her hand. You're going to be okay, but you need to actually live, not just survive. Be present. Her eyes fluttered open. Livy? She whispered. It's me. You made it through. Elias saved your life. Our grandson saved me, she murmured. The baby we threw away saved me. Not irony, I said. It's who he is. Someone who helps, sees value in every life. Teach me, she whispered. I don't want to be who I was. Okay, I said. Start by showing up, doing the work, real change. Can you? I can try, she said. Months later, we celebrated at the Maria Martinez Community Center. The Olivia Ashford Foundation had helped 63 families. Maya, our first client, was starting college with her baby. My mother volunteered, helping mothers fill paperwork, babysitting, listening. I didn't know how many struggle, she admitted. Now you know, I said. What will you do with that knowledge? Keep showing up, she said. Elias considered returning permanently. They need cardiac surgeons, and I want to be close to family. It's messy, but real. The celebration was packed. Cameras captured the rebuilt community. Lives changed. Governor Martinez spoke on second chances. His daughter Isabella awarded Elias for medical excellence. Christopher's firm took on 50 pro bono cases. Rosie cut the ribbon, honoring her daughter's belief in human goodness. She looked at my parents, changed but imperfect, genuinely trying. That night, in Rosie's apartment above the cafe, Elias showed Sophia and Isabella heart anatomy. Christopher and Elena helped Rosie in the kitchen. My parents sat on the couch, heads together, peaceful. I stood at the window, present in the moment, with this imperfect, beautiful family. 21 years ago, I thought life was over. But I had everything: love, hope, people who believed. That was enough. More than enough, Rosie said. You built a family on choice, love, and showing up. That's the real Ashford legacy. I looked around at my son, brother, parents, nieces, Rosie. They tried to erase me, I said. They told me I was nothing. And you proved them wrong, Rosie said. You became someone who helps, builds, forgives, not revenge, but grace. The girl they threw away became the woman who saved them all. Elias smiled. Mom, come here. I'm teaching the girls about hearts. Were you scared when I was born? Terrified, I admitted. But hopeful. We'd be okay. And were you? Isabella asked. Yes, I said. Exactly what we needed to be. That night, I helped Rosie clean up. Thank you, I said, for believing I could be more than what they said. You always had the strength, she said. I just gave you a place to rest while you found it. I love you, Rosie. I love you too. Walking home, I felt peace. Not perfect, not pain-free, but transformed into purpose. They tried to erase me at 17. 21 years later, they reckoned with themselves. The girl they threw away became the woman who built a family, a community, and a legacy from nothing.